Hello, my name's Philip Burns and I'm the Executive Director for the Office of Student Conduct. I'd like to welcome you to the Graduate Assistant Orientation, or if you are returning from one of our departments, I'd like to welcome you back to Unlv. Today I'm going to talk about three main points of the supports and resources that the Office of Student Conduct offers. The first is going to be primarily around dealing with academic misconduct situations. The second will be the overall student conduct code and other general conduct and conflict resolution issues. And the third will be our university support team. I think one of the things that I realized quickly is that most people hope they won't have to interact with our office. And while I get that, it is important to know the different types of supports and resources that we offer. And I think the first and foremost is making sure that all of our students understand not only what their responsibilities are as a student, but also what their rights are. So we want to make sure that while we hope nothing would ever happen to you that you think is either unfair or just something that shouldn't occur while you're a student, we know life happens. And so we are one of those offices that if something would happen, it could be somebody treating you poorly, harassing you, sometimes property damage or theft, any of those type of things. We're one of those offices that we always want a student to feel comfortable, to reach out, to contact us, to make sure that, again, you know what your different rights and options are in having a situation addressed. So that would be one primary thing that we do. And another that I'll probably try to mention a little bit more toward the end too, though, is that we also try to create opportunities for involvement. We know that you're going to be very busy as a graduate student, but we do offer some great professional development and leadership opportunities for graduate students to get involved in our office in terms of things like academic integrity boards or student conduct hearing boards that really help a student develop their listening and questioning skills, their deliberative skills, things like that. So I think once you're here a while and kind of get your schedule set in, if that's something you're interested in, please again think of us as a leadership development opportunity for you as well. Now, I think the primary way that our office does interact, particularly with graduate assistants, is through our student academic misconduct policy. And if you'll notice, I specifically use the word misconduct. Many other campuses might call it an academic dishonesty policy. We don't feel the need to call somebody dishonest or a cheater until we really get a chance to investigate a situation and know really what happened. So we do use the word misconduct, but that is to cover all of those different things in a class as far as academic expectations that an instructor may have of their students, and if something maybe goes awry. Now, by far the most common is plagiarism. And plagiarism, of course, in and of itself may not be dishonest, but it's certainly something that can't happen at the university level. So we want students to make sure they know what those expectations are in terms of their need to cite correctly, to give attribution where attribution's due. And when we talk to our undergrad students, we always say, remember these three simple words. And as a TA, if you're ever teaching a class, I would hope you also help remind them of these three simple words. Ask the instructor. It's okay sometimes that a student may not know how to give credit yet, they may not have that skill developed, but as an instructor, please make sure that your students know what it takes to give credit where credit's due. If you use a specific citing system, be it APA, MLA, whichever, there's many out there depending what discipline you may be in, please make sure that they know what your expectations are. And all of this is covered in depth in our student academic misconduct policy, which the provost's office and our office provides. It should be in every class syllabus. Another very common way that we interact under academic misconduct is also students providing or receiving unauthorized assistance. And again, that can take so many different forms that basically what we try to do is work with our instructors to say, please make sure that you know what your students are allowed and are expected to do. Because in some classes, it may be fine to use old tests as study guides. In some classes, it may be fine to get together and study or do some assignments together, but not others. So as far as an unauthorized, that term, unauthorized, really does come down to what does that instructor and that class mean? by saying it's unauthorized. So please make sure that your students do know. The more you can inform your students up front, probably the less cases you'll have to refer to us. There are other types of academic misconduct. They're not as common, so I won't go over each in depth, but again, I think the student academic misconduct policy is definitely a reference that you will want to have, particularly as you enter into teaching the different classes that you may be teaching as a graduate assistant. One of the things that is important to know as the instructor, whenever you do have a case of academic misconduct, it is university policy to make sure that that case also gets referred to our office. Now, we work with the instructors. We always want to respect your authority and jurisdiction to make sure that you all decide what the appropriate academic response is. Sometimes it might be lowering some points. Sometimes it might be a 0 on an assignment. If it's more serious, it might be a failure for the class. But whatever that is, we work with the instructor on that. But in any case where there is an academic response, it must be referred to our office too. And that is actually to protect you as an instructor as well as the students' rights. So everybody knows what their options are to get a case resolved. So, and again, if there's any questions about how to put a case report together, it's all on our website, but we certainly welcome emails or calls. You're always welcome to contact us and we'll walk you through the process. That's no problem. Now, outside of academic misconduct, our office also deals with the entire student conduct code, which again, instructors don't deal with as much, but we have seen a little bit of a spike in the last couple years in terms of disruptive behavior or students either online or in class, sometimes creating just such a disruptive environment that it does make it difficult for the teacher to teach or for the other students in the class to learn. That is certainly something that we're able to address. Like really almost everything in our office, we try to meet a student in as low level an educational manner as possible. Of course, there might be some extreme exceptions that's not possible, and of course safety is always first, but for the most part, we can work with students to try to nip something in the bud, to correct some behavior at a low level. So again, if you're having trouble with maybe a disruptive student or a classroom setting, we are happy to try to help also get that resolved. And the quicker and more low level we can do that, usually the better that turns out for everyone. In terms of really any other sort of student behavior, our office is almost like any other institution around the country. Of course, if a student should show up under the influence, that's going to fall under the conduct code. There's a lot of different things. If a student would become harassing or threatening, typically that's online nowadays. But those are things that we can respond to. So, I really don't want to limit your, responses just to these several things. I usually just try to say, hey, if you think something's happening that shouldn't have, you don't need to worry about where exactly that can fit in the conduct code. Give us a call, talk with us. If it falls under our authority and jurisdiction to try to help you resolve a conflict, we're happy to do that and we'll help you find that appropriate process to do. The one last thing I would like to mention, it's brief but it's important, is that our office also oversees something called the UNLV support team. And the UNLV support team is not conduct. It's not referring a student or reporting a student for violated a conduct code. It's for those individuals that maybe you're concerned about for their mental or psychological well-being. It could be depression, anxiety, up through the more serious suicidal ideations and kind of everything in between, home and financial and food insecurity. Any of those things, we've put together a team now that we meet once a week to respond to students and try to connect them to support resources, again, to try to help them through a tough time and get back on track, hopefully as quickly as possible. So again, it's not reporting a student for a conduct violation, it's trying to connect a student to a support resource. So please remember our office really for all three of those things that I've just mentioned. And again, if you have any questions or concerns, you can just type in student conduct at the UNLV main webpage and you'll find all of our information there as well. We're always welcoming emails and calls as well. Thank you so much and welcome again to UNLV.